Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Aparutade sangamatassa tawara ye sodavanta bamujantu satang. So I want to welcome everybody this afternoon and reflect on Dhamma, reflect on the way it is. So reflecting is our ability to be the witness, the observer, rather than the owner or the critic. And so the thinking process, our ability to think, is a critical function. So I've emphasized that over and over again. When we get caught up in thinking and we see this is right or that's wrong, when we look inward, we criticize ourselves, we criticize our families, the world we live in, and so there's plenty to criticize in the world or in oneself. So the critical function has its use in worldly situations. It can also be a curse of getting caught up in just seeing what's wrong with everything. And so, just to be the observer of that. It's not like I'm trying to say you shouldn't be critical, but is that your true nature? Are you a critic? Are you a human being who lives in a world full of seeing what's wrong with it, with yourself, with the society, with a family? Because that oftentimes is what happens to us. We live in a realm of just being dwelling on what's wrong, what we don't like. We dwell in the past about the injustices or humiliations or suffering we experienced in our past, so we can be caught in remembering what happened, the injustice or unfairness or the brutality that we might have experienced as a child, as a teenager, as an adult. So reflecting on that is not trying to get rid of it, but ask yourself, are you really, is that your true nature, spending your life remembering the injustices of life or the unfairness or the humiliation? Or we can spend our old age in just remembering the happy events. So that's memory. Memory is something that is also a gift and a curse. That's our nature as human animals, is that we have a retentive memory. So we can create languages, complicated languages, codes, mathematics, physics, all due to ability to remember. So memory then, in terms of Dhamma, to reflect on memory is not trying to remember anything, but observing that the very language you think is a memory. Whether it's a simple pronoun me, or the good times and when I was young, or the unfairness of life, we remember the past. So the past, in this case, as I've often said, is a memory in the present. So in terms of the 5 khandhas, we use the sanya khandha as a memory, being able to remember. And there's a lot we'd like to forget, a lot in our life, and unpleasant experiences and situations that we would just as soon forget. So memory is something we acquire and we can forget. So like a newborn infant isn't remembering anything, but it's fully conscious. And the form is a human form, male or female, and it's a conscious form, but it doesn't have anything to remember. What it does know, a newborn infant, is surviving when it's hungry, when it's tired, when it's lonely, and so forth. These are more or less feelings that are natural to the human condition, being born as a separate form into a world of conditioned phenomena that we don't, that we're experiencing through the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind, but we don't understand it. So we call this innocence. In our childhood, we lived to a certain age of innocent experience, and we're conditioned through the family, through the culture, through the religion, to see ourselves in certain ways. What's right and wrong, what's normal, what's abnormal, what's acceptable, what's unacceptable is the way of training a child. So it's a kind of reward and punishment experience. So with getting back to the subject of memory, then we're conditioned to know, to have views about what's right and views about what's wrong. We get punished for being wrong, we get rewarded for being right. So then righteousness becomes important to us. We judge ourselves, our lives, our experience of life as we grow older with these 2 terms, right and wrong, good or bad. And that's the critical mind, remembering what you were taught when you were innocent, what is right behavior, what is normal behavior, what is acceptable, what is unacceptable, what is bad behavior, abnormal behavior. So these are words that we acquire, and they form our ego. We develop a sense of ourself as a very separate entity in a vast universe, in a world that is changing and unpredictable, but which we have been told that we should believe in this or not believe in that. So the conditioning process destroys this innocence and then we're caught in the conditioning, which is memory. So your cultural conditioning is all remembered. For example, here in Europe, the national identities are very, conditioned from, in your innocent years, you're conditioned to seeing yourself as English or Scottish or French. And what is that? What is being English? Is a memory that you were educated with. You were told you were English or French when you were an innocent child. You had no choice but take what you're told, what your mother and father, family, your group identity is established in those early years of childhood and teenage. So in reflecting on memory, on sanya, is to be the witness of it, rather than the owner. Like when I say we own memories, then we are very much affected by remembering the past. And we're given future predictions about the future. And and that's all memory, imagination about the future. So the future is, for all of us, we get older and older, and then we get sick, and then we die. So that's our future for every single person here, everyone in the world. But that is not very pleasant for most people to think of that. They want to stay young and healthy and successful, because those are the conditions you're rewarded for when you're young. So sanya kanda, or memory, is to be witness to. And this, all you have to do is just think a pronoun like I am, a personal pronoun and a verb, and that's memory. It arises and ceases. It's useful. It's functional in the world, in society. But it's also impermanent and not self. It's not. You're not an I am. You're not a separate form in the universe that you feel like when you think and when you remember what you've been told. By reflecting on the impermanence of sanya, of memory, you begin to lose your interest in your memories. They're no longer that important because they are just things that arise and cease. Words that you've acquired in your childhood, in your early years when you're learning to speak a language. And you've been told that, and we're educated to learn languages, to learn subjects of interest. There's a lot of things to be interested in that we see, hear, smell, taste, touch. Mental training of various sorts, intellectual challenges, aesthetics, modern science, modern psychology. Now there's artificial intelligence, and that's all memory too, the mechanical function of programming a robot, a machine. So, and then in Buddhist terms, we reflect on that memory is impermanent. So we say, sanya anicca. All memories are impermanent. So that gives us a different perspective, because we're more witnessing the impermanence of a memory rather than the judgment that comes from remembering the past or worrying about the future, projecting into the future ominous predictions, Armageddon, the end of the world, nuclear war, climate change. All these are words that we remember that are common enough in the media at this time. But then, as a separate form in the universe, it's a very frightening experience to feel this separateness in a very fragile form such as the human body. Because it's very vulnerable, easily damaged, subject to disease, gets old, dies, and our identity is so fixed in with what we look like, with the bodies that we strongly own and identify with. So the cause of suffering is this attachment to conditions, to memories, to thoughts, to emotions. And the insight is to let go of them, which doesn't mean destroying them, getting rid of them, because that is impossible. It's our very nature in this species, of the human species, to have retentive memory. So we can lose our memories as we get older. When we're young, when we're youthful, we have maybe very active memories, easily remember things. As the years go by, your memory isn't so active. It's hard to remember the past or events in the same way that you did when you were younger. And so memory is something that you get and you can lose, because it is impermanent and it's not self. It's not, to see it, to own memory as yourself, then you become a separate person. And when you start losing your memory, then the judgment, others, see you as demented or no longer interesting, because the society depends on activating memories, on being interesting, on being lively, on supporting the party line. So it's interesting in the political systems of modern countries how strongly one identifies with the right or the left, with words like democracy or communism or socialism. These are memories, acquired thoughts or ideas or ideals that we're told is normal, right, or good. So in the United States, where I grew up, communism was bad, and democracy was good. So even in the present-day American news programs, the media, to call somebody a communist is to put them down. And so is communism bad, or have we just been conditioned to believe it's bad and it's democracy good. So we believe that everything should be democratic. What about socialism? That can be another insult, or it can be something very inspiring. When you read Karl Marx, for example, you realize how many people were inspired by his attitudes of socialism and communism, because they're very idealistic about equality and getting rid of the class structures, the wealthy and the poor and so forth, everything shared, everything equal. How better can you imagine it, where the society is perfect, where there's no corruption, where there's justice and fairness, equality. People aren't poor or wealthy, they're all the same. That is ideal, because it's taking the words, superlative words, and clinging to them, owning them. That's how life should be. But in our ability to reflect on the way it is, the world is like this. At this time, how you experience life here at Amaravati or in the society you're living in, it is, whether it's right or wrong, good or bad, or normal or abnormal, is up to various viewpoints and memories. So some people think that monasticism is avoiding responsibility. They have various views that we're living in ivory tower and we just want to be fed for free. And so because that's how they've been conditioned to interpret alms mendicancy. And then you live in Buddhist countries where alms mendicants are highly regarded, highly respected, because they're conditioned to respect that. The idea of dana, of the joy of giving, of into the way that the generosity developed to supporting spiritual seekers, can also be very inspiring as words, as memory. So ideals are inspiring, and things and what is depressing is all the, the critical mind seeing what's wrong with everything, with oneself, with the world. Because that's depressing, to be caught in just a negative, owning the negative memories and conditioning of your life is the reality of depression. Because it's lacking joy, you just see life as pointless, meaningless. You see yourself in these same terms. So the witness, Buddho, or taking refuge in Buddha, is witnessing this. It's not trying to change things, but to be the witness of the way it is as we experience life in the way that we individually experience it, the way we think, what we remember, what we were been told to believe in, with our own fears or anxieties, worries about the future, or our guilt, remorse, or resentment of the past, rather than being caught into these conditions that we remember. We're the observer of memory, the witness to our ability to remember. And all memories are impermanent. And when you begin to recognize that, how briefly memory lasts, it's described in the suttas as soap bubbles or foam on the sea, just illusions, temporary illusions that arise and cease. But what remains, what is the position of the witness is conscious awareness. So then we get back to consciousness, where memories can manifest. If there's no consciousness, there's not going to be any memories. If there's no consciousness, then nothing can manifest. There's no space, there's no earth, fire, water, or air. There's no forms, good or bad, beautiful or ugly. There's nothing. If you take the belief in annihilation, annihilating consciousness. But can you? Because we identify consciousness with thinking, with the sensory experiences through the forms. So in the teaching of the five khandhas, when we talk about consciousness being impermanent, it's the sense, what we experience through the senses. So we think we're conscious because we have eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and a mind, thinking mind. We feel conscious because we have retentive memory. We think we're not conscious when we're sleeping, when we're in deep sleep. Consciousness disappears. Or you're given some anesthetic for an operation, you lose consciousness. Is a general attitude of modern life in the Western world. But does consciousness arise and cease? So we talk about unconscious, conscious awareness in the awakened state then is where we reflect. And we begin to abide in the pure conscious awareness, which is non-critical, which is non-judgmental, which is formless, and which allows us to be conscious of space and form. Because without consciousness, there could be no space and no form, no time. So forms are all about time. Like the body itself is a time-bound condition. So it's born, grows up, gets old and dies. That's the experience of time that we identify with, that time is our reality. But is consciousness, is it time-bound, or is it here and now, apparent, here and now, and timeless? Try to imagine timelessness. Just put forth the effort, try to imagine timelessness with your imagination, with your thinking mind. And you can't do it. Because the thinking mind is all about time. All thoughts arise and cease, all memories come and go and change. All the senses that we identify with our eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, with our brain, are changing, are time-bound conditions. And consciousness, then, if consciousness is personal and time-bound, then then everything is annihilated. There's nothing left. Just total nihilism. And the Buddha made it very, very clear in his first sermon that the middle way, the Dhamma, is neither eternal or nihilistic or annihilationist, but timeless. So in timelessness, then there's no language, but it is not critical. Conscious awareness, here and now, timeless, is aware of the manifestation and disappearance of phenomena, of experience as we live our daily lives. So the importance of this kind of teaching at this time is that Western society, modern life, has been very, has developed the material world to an excellent degree, amazing, kind of magical mechanics, technology, ideals that are perfect and inspiring. And we have organizations like United Nations or World Health Organizations, or, the idea of uniting all the countries of the world in a democratic way so that we all help each other and get along is the hope and aspiration of many idealistic people, which is beautiful in itself, so it's not disparaging that. But also, we feel discouraged when we see the way it is, when we hear about the wars that are going on, the starvation, the climate problems, the shootings in the United States, the COVID pandemic, the fears of even worse pandemics, of flooding, of all kinds of climatic traumas are possible in the future. So for modern life, modern technology has really developed the outward sense of going into the minutiae of phenomena, but oftentimes misses out on the reality of Dhamma, ultimate reality, absolute reality. So the path, as we describe it, is not really a path. We call it the Eightfold Path, the Four Noble Truths. The last one, the Fourth Noble Truth, is called the Eightfold Path. And path is just a word that gives the impression of starting in one point and ending up in another point. So you're on the path, you're at the beginning of the path, and then you hope to reach the end of the path. That's the standard way of thinking and defining the word path. But then the chanting, when we say Santidiko Akaliko, parent here and now, timeless, Dhamma is apparent here and now, and it's timeless. It's conscious awareness that we can begin to recognize as our true nature. And then consciousness is not personal. So the differences between male and female, or black and white, or communists, or Democrats, or capitalists, or criminals, and angels, and devas, and brahmas, and devils, and all the imagined forms that we're capable of imagining or creating or believing in. They're conditions that are acquired. They're not ultimate reality. Is there a kind of ultimate evil in the world? Is there a evil force, a satanic force in the universe that is very dangerous, and we have to guard ourselves against it? We can be taken over by the devil, by Satan, by all the evil forces that we can imagine. Because we can project evil into the experience of life. And so in terms of a satanic force, in terms of the reality of now, is a memory. If we believe there's no satanic force, that's another belief. Or if we believe there is, then they're both memories. And we're witnessing the memory. Believing in satanic force, there's a satanic force, is a condition that arises and ceases. Or believing there's no satanic force is another condition that arises and ceases. When you let go of both extremes, what's left is conscious awareness. And we call that nibbana, end of suffering. So the end of suffering is here and now. It's not when everything in the world is straightened out and the evil forces are banished forever. So in my own experience, for example, taking this to the terms of personal experience, of experience that I have in the way I am as a Buddhist monk, as a personality. So I'm not thinking of it in terms of universal, of a big universal nibbana, or end of suffering, as once I realize the end of suffering, that I never get old or sick, or I'm healthy and I'll live forever. That's still identity with the body and the conditioned realm. Because in the suttas, the Buddha, after his enlightenment, got old, got sick, and died. Gautama the Buddha, because that's the nature of the human form. But he obviously didn't take it personally. He realized the personal conditioning that he acquired in his youth was just memory arising and ceasing, conditioned from others. You're told what you are. You're a prince. You're an important person. And how you should be responsible and good king, and on like that. So it acquired all these kind of ideals, no doubt, to fight the forces of evil, the enemy, those that threaten the justice and fairness. The families of our society are all kind of noble in their instruction, to be a hero, to save the world, to protect the family, protect the society. These are all noble sentiments, not to put them down, but they are that, they arise and cease. So when we're caught in sentimentality, or in the thinking process, or in memories, then we never see the end of suffering, because the world doesn't ever reach a point where it can be perfect, because the very nature of this experience that we're all experiencing is imperfect. It's changing. It's impermanent. Where ideals are perfect, like the ideals that you can create with superlative thoughts, that you can create perfect superlative thoughts. But thoughts are impermanent, so even ideals, perfect ideals, are imperfect in their nature. They arise and they cease. If we just assume life is imperfect and we've got to make the best of it, that's not the answer either. It's not a kind of resignation to misery or to take a pessimistic view that life is meaningless, purposeless, and do the best you can with it or get on with it. These are all thoughts, ideas that we might have in our life. But when we take the stand as the witness, then we're not the judge anymore. We're not trying to judge our negative thoughts or fears or idealism, but we're recognizing it is for what it is. All conditions are impermanent. And consciousness is not self. It's not personal. So it's the same for all of us. It's unitive. When we begin to abide in conscious awareness, we feel the universal, the unity of life, the perfection. Because Dhamma is perfect. It's stainless and flawless. And the way to realize that is through conscious awareness. But when we talk about Dhamma, we use English words like absolute reality or ultimate reality, because that's the best, those are superlative words in English. In Thailand, where it's nature, what's natural is consciousness. So in the Thai society, you brought up learning the Thai language, then you use the word Dhamma in very ordinary ways. What's natural, the way things are. But in Western society, we see nature. You know, in my own experience, I don't know if that's true with the rest of you, but I was always saw nature as something out there. What's natural is the trees, the mountains, what hasn't been corrupted by modern society or materialism, that's nature. And it took me to be reflective on the way things are to realize that this form here, sitting here, reflecting on Dhamma, is a natural form that arises and ceases. Rather than seeing nature as something you go out and enjoy in the springtime, go to the forest across the road, see the bluebells, they're very beautiful, and that's admiring nature. Or what's natural is that all the conditions that arise cease. Dhamma is apparent here and now, and that's a fact that you can prove. It's not an ideal, apparent here and now. It's not some metaphysical theory or philosophy. It's the reality of being experienced. Consciousness is like this. You know you're conscious at this very moment. So it's not something remote or refined, but something that you truly are. But you can't claim it, because to claim consciousness is mine. I have to think with words. I have to use possessive pronouns. Consciousness is mine, is me, and then I'm caught in the delusion that comes from that assumption that I am consciousness as a person. But abiding in awareness, that's bhavana, or real meditation. It's the ability to reflect on life as you experience it, in whatever way we individually experience life. You can't really help the way you are. We don't choose to have the personalities that we experience through these forms. We don't choose to be male or female or anything like that. These are just conditions we experience the world through the senses, through seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking. You didn't choose your parents or your ancestors. But these conditions that we have, that we identify with, are all sanya, or memories, conditions that manifest in consciousness and cease in consciousness. And it's through this kind of relentless reflecting in this way that we begin to know this. At first, we can understand it intellectually, it can be inspiring. Most of us found Buddha Dhamma very inspiring as an intellectual ability to read the suttas, the teachings of the Buddha, and so forth. And so intellectually, it's quite a beautiful intellectual exercise. But the intellect is still conditioned. It's acquired knowledge. The suttas are acquired knowledge. Where Dhamma, the reality of Dhamma, is apparent here and now and timeless. And as I use the word relentlessly, remember that. So using memory to remember, so like Puto can be a helpful sign. Like when you come into the temple and see the Buddha Rupa, remember, your true nature is conscious awareness. Or you can believe that the Buddha Rupa has the sacred powers, or those are beliefs. That Buddha Rupas have magic powers, or some have magic powers, or psychic gifts. One can believe that. But the way to use Buddha images, or the word Buddha or Puto, is to remember here and now. Consciousness is here and now, at this very moment. It's a fact. You know it. It's not a teaching that you acquired. So from the day you're born, the form is in consciousness, like the infant and the mother are both in the same consciousness. Even when the infant is separated, consciousness is not about being infant nor being a mother, but it's where motherhood and birth can happen, can manifest, and also disappear. So this is a way of reflecting on the gift we have of memory, sanya kanda, to use it with wisdom, with panya, to observe, be the witness of sanya rather than the owner of it. So in early years in Thailand with Luang Por Chah, I remember feeling, I was in a kuti in the back of the forest at Wat Pah Pong, a very nice kuti, very separate from the rest of the monks, and I started remembering the things of the past that really angered me, resented. And I found myself getting all upset and really angry over remembering things of the past that were unpleasant or unfair. So then I reflected. This anger has nothing to do with the situation I'm in. I'm not angry at the monks or the monastery. They treated me very well, and so the anger has nothing to do with the situation. I was healthy then, and I quite liked the life of a Buddhist monk. So I wasn't angry about anything in the present, but just the ability to remember, get myself wound up with anger and resentment through remembering the past, isolating incidences of humiliation or unfairness or injustice that I personally identified with, would create this incredible anger. And then I started laughing at myself, because as I started reflecting, that it's all, the soap bubbles foam on the sea, there's nothing to it. If sanya or memory it's empty phenomena. And to hold on to empty phenomena is like holding on to something. You have to keep recreating it, remembering it, and letting it arouse emotions. To feel really angry about the injustices of life, you have to dwell on it, remember it, cling to it, keep remembering it. And of course that creates a sense of misery and resentment in life as you're living it. So like when we talk about angry people that live in just this resentment and anger, because that's what they're doing, they're clinging to soap bubbles or foam on the sea, things that have no essence, no core, no heart, but keep them feeling this strong emotion and resentment towards life itself, towards others. And that's suffering. That's the First Noble Truth. So the end of suffering is to let go. It doesn't mean you resist it, or you deny it, or you try to get rid of anger, but anger is impermanent, and it manifests and disappears if you're willing to be the witness of it, rather than take it personally and identify with it. So the apparent here, now, and timeless, that's a fact that you can operate from. It's not a belief. It's not something that Buddhists believe in. Because no matter what state of mind you're in at this moment, the consciousness, you're conscious. Consciousness is like this. And then when you begin to realize consciousness is silent, doesn't have a language, it's non-emotional, it's peaceful, and that's Nibbana, or ultimate reality. So I offer this as a reflection.